Dr. Lisa Manning was drinking her morning coffee when the world changed forever. The xenobiologist had been studying alien microorganisms for 15 years, but she never expected to meet actual aliens. Her phone buzzed with an urgent message. From NASA, then another from the Pentagon, then 3 more from colleagues around the world. Something big was happening, and everyone wanted her input. She rushed to her lab at the International Space Research Center where chaos greeted her. Scientists ran between computers, shouting numbers and coordinates. Dr. Amy Foster grabbed her arm as soon as she walked in. Amy's face was pale, her hands shaking as she pointed at the main display screen. "Lisa, you need to see this," Amy said. "They're here, real aliens, and they want to talk to us." The screen showed a massive ship hanging in space above Earth. It was unlike anything humans had ever built. The vessel stretched for miles, its surface covered in geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. Strange lights pulsed along its hull in rhythms that seemed almost like breathing. Dr. Peter Grant, the facility's chief physicist, approached them with a tablet in his hands. His usually calm demeanor had cracked, revealing excitement mixed with fear. "The ship appeared 30 minutes ago," he explained. "No warning, no approach trajectory we could detect. It just materialized in orbit like it had always been there." Lisa stared at the image, her scientific mind racing. "Have they tried to communicate?" "That's the thing," Peter said. "They sent a message in perfect English. Not just English, but dozens of languages simultaneously." "They know about us, Lisa? They know everything about us?" Before Lisa could respond, every screen in the facility flickered. The alien ship disappeared, replaced by the image of a creature that defied easy description. It stood upright like a human, but was clearly not human. Its body was covered in a chitinous exoskeleton that gleamed like polished metal. 4 arms extended from its torso, each ending in delicate hands with too many fingers. Its head was elongated, with large multifaceted eyes that seemed to look in all directions at once. "People of Earth," the creature spoke, its voice somehow perfectly clear despite having no visible mouth. "I am Zethkar, representative of the Galactic Council. Your species has reached a crucial point in its development. You must now undergo the Standard Civilization Assessment." Lisa felt her heart skip a beat. The Galactic Council, the implications were staggering. Humanity wasn't alone, and apparently they weren't the first species to reach this point. "The assessment consists of 5 tests," Zethkar continued. "These tests will determine whether your species possesses the qualities necessary for membership in the galactic community. You will be evaluated on technological advancement, resource management, diplomatic capability, ethical development, and strategic thinking." The creature's image shifted, showing various alien worlds and civilizations. Some were beautiful beyond imagination, with crystal cities and floating gardens. Others were more modest, but all showed signs of advanced technology and organization. "Success in these tests will grant your species full membership in the Council," Zethkar explained. "You will gain access to our knowledge, our technology, and our protection. Trade routes will open to your merchants. Your scientists will learn from the greatest minds in the galaxy. Your people will be free to explore the stars." Lisa exchanged glances with her colleagues. This was everything humanity had dreamed of since first looking up at the night sky. But there was something in Zethkar's tone that suggested this wasn't going to be easy. "Failure, however, carries consequences," the alien continued. "Species that fail the assessment are deemed too dangerous or primitive to join the galactic community. They are quarantined within their home system, isolated from the rest of the galaxy until they naturally evolve beyond their current limitations." The weight of those words settled over the room like a heavy blanket. Quarantine, isolation. It meant humanity would be trapped in their own solar system, cut off from the stars forever. "You have been selected for assessment based on your recent technological achievements," Zethkar said. "Your nuclear capabilities, your space exploration, your global communication networks. These indicate you are approaching the threshold where you must either advance or be contained. Within hours, the United Nations had assembled an emergency session. Secretary General Carlos Rivera, a calm man who had navigated countless international crises, found himself facing the greatest challenge in human history. World leaders gathered virtually, their faces grim as they watched the alien transmission. Commander Jake Sullivan of the newly formed Earth Defense Initiative was called in to coordinate the response. Jake had spent his career preparing for theoretical alien contact, but the reality was far more intense than any simulation. He stood before a room full of scientists, military personnel, and government officials, all looking to him for answers. He didn't have. "We need our best people on this," Jake announced. "Dr. Manning, you'll lead the biological and cultural analysis team. Dr. Foster, you'll work on the technological aspects. Dr. Grant, I need you to figure out how their technology works." Lisa felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. She had studied alien life for years, but only theoretical possibilities. Now she was face to face with the real thing, and the fate of humanity might depend on her insights. The first test begins in 72 hours, Zethkar had announced. "You must demonstrate mastery over quantum mechanics by stabilizing a failing star system. You will be provided with the coordinates and basic parameters. All materials and equipment must come from within your solar system." As the alien's image faded, the room erupted in frantic discussion. Stabilizing a star system was beyond anything humanity had ever attempted. Their most advanced space missions barely reached the outer planets, and now they were being asked to manipulate stellar physics. Dr. Grant pulled up star charts on his tablet, his fingers moving rapidly across the screen. "The target system is about 50 light-years away," he said. "We can't even get there with our current technology, let alone influence stellar mechanics." "Maybe that's not the point," Lisa suggested. "Maybe they want to see how we approach an impossible problem." Jake nodded slowly. "Or maybe they're testing something else entirely. Our creativity, our ability to think outside normal parameters." The next few hours were a blur of activity. Teams of scientists worked around the clock, analyzing the alien technology they could observe from the ship still hanging in Earth's orbit. Military strategists developed contingency plans. Diplomats prepared for more detailed negotiations, but underneath all the frantic preparation, a disturbing thought nagged at Lisa. The alien had spoken of other species, other civilizations. How many had passed these tests? More importantly, how many had failed and been sealed away from the galaxy forever? As night fell over the research center, Lisa stood at the window looking up at the alien ship. Its lights continued their rhythmic pulsing like a heartbeat in the darkness. Somewhere up there, Zethkar was probably watching them, analyzing their every move, judging whether humanity deserved to join the galactic community. The first test would begin soon, and with it, humanity's greatest challenge would unfold. Dr. Helen Wade stared at the quantum resonance device with growing dread. The massive machine hummed with barely contained energy in the Luna Station laboratory, its components vibrating at frequencies that made her teeth ache. She had been working for 68 hours straight, trying to create a device that could stabilize a dying star system 50 light-years away. "The calculations are perfect," she muttered to herself, checking the readings for the 100th time. "The theory is sound. This should work." Engineer Rick Barnes looked up from his control panel, his face exhausted but determined. "All systems are green, Helen. The quantum field generators are synchronized. The resonance frequency matches the stellar parameters exactly. Around them, the best minds from Earth worked frantically. Dr. Peter Grant monitored the energy output while Dr. Amy Foster tracked the quantum field stability. Everyone knew the stakes. Failure meant Earth would be judged as technologically primitive, one step closer to permanent isolation. "Initiating quantum field projection," Helen announced. She pressed the activation button and the device roared. To life, energy crackled through the air, and for a moment, it seemed like they might actually succeed. Then everything went wrong. The resonance frequency spiked beyond safe parameters. Alarms blared throughout the station. Rick's hands flew over his controls, trying to shut down the system, but the quantum field had become unstable. The device began to tear itself apart, metal screaming as exotic forces ripped through its structure. "Everyone!" "Out!" Helen shouted, but it was too late. The quantum resonance device exploded in a blaze of light that could be seen from Earth. The blast tore through Luna Station's laboratory, destroying millions of dollars worth of equipment and nearly killing half the research team. When the smoke cleared, Helen sat in the wreckage, her hands shaking. The star system they were supposed to save continued its slow death, unchanged by their efforts. Earth had failed the first test spectacularly. Dr. Lisa Manning received the news while preparing for the second test. Her heart sank as she read the report from Luna Station. The technological assessment had been a disaster, but there was no time to dwell on failure. The second test was already beginning. "Resource management," she said to the assembled team. "We need to terraform a barren moon while maintaining ecological balance." Dr. Nancy Cruz, Earth's leading environmental specialist, stepped forward. Nancy had spent her career fixing environmental disasters, but terraforming was entirely different. She would need to create a livable atmosphere, stable weather patterns, and sustainable ecosystems from nothing. "The target moon is in the asteroid belt," Nancy explained, pointing to the holographic display. "No atmosphere, no water, no life. We have to make it habitable within 1 week." The team worked with desperate efficiency. Massive atmospheric processors were launched from Earth, each one capable of converting raw materials into breathable air. Water extraction units were deployed to pull moisture from buried ice deposits. Seeds and microorganisms were prepared for rapid ecosystem development. For the first 3 days, everything went according to plan. The processors began generating oxygen and nitrogen. Water vapor started forming clouds. The moon's surface temperature rose to habitable levels. Then the atmospheric processors began malfunctioning. "The chemical balance is wrong," Nancy reported, her voice tight with panic. "The processors are producing too much sulfur dioxide. The atmosphere is becoming toxic." She tried to shut down the malfunctioning units, but they had been designed for remote operation with minimal human intervention. The toxic gases continued pumping into the atmosphere, creating deadly storms that swept across the moon's surface. "We're losing atmospheric cohesion," reported Dr. Grant from the monitoring station. "The storms are creating pressure differentials that are tearing the atmosphere apart." Within hours, the moon that was supposed to become a paradise had turned into a hellscape. Toxic storms raged across its surface, the atmosphere too poisonous for any life to survive. The second test had failed even more dramatically than the first. Ambassador Tony Martinez tried to maintain his composure as he prepared for the diplomatic test. Tony had spent 20 years in international relations, negotiating treaties and resolving conflicts. But mediating between alien species was beyond anything he had ever attempted. The two warring species appeared on the communication screen. The Kythera looked like crystalline beings made of living glass, their bodies reflecting light in beautiful patterns. The Vorthak were more disturbing, with writhing tentacles and eyes that seemed to look through everything they saw. "These species have been at war for 300 years, Zethkar explained. "Your task is to negotiate a lasting peace between them. You have 4 hours, Tony began with standard diplomatic approaches. He asked each species to explain their grievances, looking for common ground. The Kythera complained that the Vorthak had violated ancient territorial agreements. The Vorthak insisted that the Kythera had dishonored their ancestors through religious persecution. "I understand both of your concerns," Tony said carefully. "Perhaps we can find a solution that honors both your territorial rights and your religious traditions." The response was immediate and catastrophic. Both species began screaming at him in their alien languages. The Kythera's crystalline bodies flashed with angry red light. The Vorthak's tentacles writhed violently. "You dare suggest we compromise our sacred territories?" the Kythera leader shrieked. "You insult our ancestors by treating their suffering as negotiable?" The Vorthak commander roared. Tony had unknowingly violated the deepest taboos of both species. To the Kythera, territory was sacred and non-negotiable. To the Vorthak, ancestor worship was the foundation of their entire culture. His human approach of finding middle ground had been the worst possible strategy. The diplomatic session ended with both species threatening to declare war on Earth. Tony sat in stunned silence, realizing he had not only failed to make peace, but had actually made the situation worse. The fourth test came quickly. Dr. Lisa Manning found herself facing an ethical dilemma that would have challenged the greatest philosophers. On one screen, she saw a refugee ship carrying 10,000 civilians, fleeing a destroyed world. On another screen, she saw a research station with 50 scientists working on a cure for a plague that had killed millions. "You can save only one," Sethkar announced. "The refugee ship's life support will fail in 30 minutes. The research station will be destroyed by an asteroid impact at the same time. Choose." Captain Steve Johnson, who had been brought in to make the final decision, studied both screens. The refugees included families with children, elderly people, and pregnant women. The research station contained scientists on the verge of a breakthrough that could save countless lives across the galaxy. "I choose the refugees," Steve said without hesitation. "We don't abandon people in need." The decision came from his heart, from his human instinct to protect the innocent. But as soon as he spoke, he realized the council might see it differently. The logical choice would have been to save the research station, to preserve the cure that could help millions. His emotional, human response had probably cost Earth another test. When the results came in, Lisa's worst fears were confirmed. Earth had failed all 4 tests. The technological assessment had ended in explosion. The resource management test had created a toxic wasteland. The diplomatic test had nearly started a war. The ethical test had been decided by emotion rather than logic. "Your species shows dangerous unpredictability," Sethkar announced. "You cannot control your own technology. You destroy rather than create. You inflame conflicts rather than resolve them. You choose emotion over reason." Lisa felt the weight of humanity's future crushing down on her. One test remained, but their track record suggested that failure was inevitable. Around the world, people watched the news reports with growing despair. Earth was about to be cut off from the stars forever. The final test would determine everything. And humanity had already proven they were not ready for the galaxy. General Paul Collins had seen many battles in his 30-year military career, but nothing had prepared him for this. He stood in the Pentagon's Situation Room, surrounded by the best strategic minds on Earth, staring at a holographic display that showed their final test. The fate of humanity rested on this last chance, and everyone knew their track record was terrible. "The scenario is straightforward," Sethkar had explained earlier. "A human colony world with 2 million inhabitants is under attack by overwhelming alien forces. You must devise a strategy to defend the colony using only the resources available in the simulation." The alien representative had made it clear that this was Earth's final opportunity. 4 failures had already marked humanity as dangerously unpredictable and technologically primitive. One more failure would seal their fate forever. Colonel Mary Stone stepped forward, her tablet displaying the initial tactical assessment. Mary had studied military history for decades, from ancient battles to modern warfare. She understood strategy better than almost anyone on Earth. "The enemy force is massive," she reported. 300 warships, each one twice the size of our largest vessels. They have advanced shields, energy weapons, and faster than light travel. Our colony has 50 ships and basic planetary defenses. Major Ben Wright, the Pentagon's top tactical analyst, pulled up detailed scans of the enemy fleet. Ben had spent years developing new military doctrines, but this situation challenged everything he knew about warfare. "Their technology is clearly superior," Ben said. "Their shields can absorb direct hits from nuclear weapons. Their energy weapons can destroy our ships with single shots. Conventional warfare won't work." General Collins nodded grimly. He had fought in conflicts across the globe, but this was different. This wasn't just about winning a battle. This was about proving humanity deserved to survive among the stars. "We need to think like humans," he said. "Use our advantages. What do we do better than anyone else?" The team spent hours analyzing the simulation parameters. The enemy fleet approached the colony world in perfect formation, their ships arranged in geometric patterns that demonstrated mathematical precision. Their attack patterns followed logical sequences, each move calculated for maximum efficiency. "They're too organized," Mary observed. "Look at their formation." "It's perfect, but it's also predictable," Ben agreed. "Every ship maintains exact distance from its neighbors. Their attack vectors follow mathematical curves. There's no chaos, no improvisation. The strategy they developed was purely human. Instead of trying to match the enemy's technological superiority, they would use guerrilla tactics, surprise attacks, and coordinated chaos. Their ships would break formation, attack from unexpected angles, and use the colony's geography to their advantage. "We'll use the asteroid belt around the colony," Collins explained. "Hide our ships among the rocks, then strike when they're not expecting it. Hit-and-run tactics, just like fighting a superior force on Earth." The simulation began, and for the first few hours, their strategy seemed to work. Human ships darted between asteroids, launching surprise attacks before disappearing again. The enemy fleet, confused by the chaotic tactics, began to break their perfect formation, but technology eventually won over strategy. The enemy's superior sensors tracked human ships despite their hiding spots. Their faster engines allowed them to pursue and destroy the fleeing defenders. Their stronger shields absorbed attack after attack without taking significant damage. "We're losing ships faster than we can replace them," Mary reported. "The enemy is adapting to our tactics." Ben watched the tactical display with growing despair. "They're using our own strategy against us. They've learned from our attacks and adjusted their formation accordingly." The battle dragged on for 3 days. Human defenders fought with courage and creativity, but they were simply outmatched. One by one, their ships were destroyed. The colony's orbital defenses fell silent. The enemy fleet moved into position around the planet, preparing for the final assault. "Simulation complete," Zethkar announced. "The colony has been destroyed, all defenders eliminated." The invasion was successful. General Collins stared at the tactical display, now showing only enemy ships in orbit around the dead colony world. "The final test had been a complete disaster, just like all the others. Your species has now failed all 5 assessments," Zethkar continued. "Technological advancement resulted in catastrophic failure. Resource management created environmental disaster. Diplomatic efforts increased hostility between species. Ethical decisions prioritized emotion over logic. Strategic thinking proved inadequate against superior forces." Dr. Lisa Manning watched the proceedings from the observation deck, her heart sinking with each word. Around the world, people gathered in homes, bars, and public squares, watching the news broadcasts with growing horror. The impossible had happened. Humanity had failed every single test. "The Galactic Council has reached its decision," Zethkar announced. "The human species is deemed too dangerous and unpredictable to join the galactic community. Your aggressive tendencies, combined with your technological incompetence, present an unacceptable risk to civilized space." The alien representatives' image shifted, showing a technical readout of some kind of energy field. "Quarantine protocols will now be activated. An energy barrier will be established around your solar system. This barrier will prevent any human vessel from leaving your local space and will block all communication with the galaxy beyond." Lisa felt the world spinning around her. Quarantine, isolation, humanity would be trapped in their own solar system, forever watching the stars but never reaching them. All their dreams of exploration, of joining a galactic civilization, were ending. "The barrier will activate in 24 hours, Zethkar continued. "This will give you time to recall any vessels currently beyond your planetary orbits. Once the barrier is active, nothing will be able to cross it in either direction." The alien ship began to move, preparing to leave Earth's orbit. Around the world, people reacted with shock, anger, and despair. Some rioted in the streets. Others gathered in churches and temples, praying for salvation. Most simply watched in stunned silence as their future among the stars died. President Linda Hayes addressed the world that evening, her voice heavy with the weight of humanity's failure. "We gave our best effort," she said. "Our brightest minds, our most capable people, our greatest resources. But it wasn't enough. The galaxy has judged us unworthy." But even as the quarantine barrier began forming around the solar system, Dr. Amy Foster was making a discovery that would change everything. She had been analyzing the energy readings from all their failed tests, looking for patterns when she noticed something impossible. "Lisa," she called out, her voice trembling with excitement, "you need to see this. The energy signatures from our failures, they're not random. They're creating a pattern in the barrier itself." Lisa rushed to Amy's workstation, where complex equations covered multiple screens. "What kind of pattern? I'm not sure yet," Amy replied. "But every single failure we had during the tests left a quantum signature. And now those signatures are embedded in the quarantine barrier. It's like our failures are talking to each other." Outside, the barrier continued to form an invisible wall that would trap humanity forever. But inside Dr. Foster's laboratory, the first hints of a much larger truth were beginning to emerge. Perhaps their failures hadn't been failures at all. Perhaps they had been something else entirely. Dr. Amy Foster stared at the computer screen, her eyes burning from exhaustion. She had been working for 18 hours straight, analyzing the quantum signatures from every failed test humanity had endured. The patterns were there, hidden in the data, but they were unlike anything she had ever seen before. The explosion at Luna Station created a specific resonance frequency, she explained to Dr. Lisa Manning, who had rushed to the laboratory after. Amy's urgent call. When our quantum device failed, it didn't just destroy itself. It left an imprint in the quantum field around Earth. Lisa looked at the complex equations covering Amy's screens. Mathematics had never been her strong point, but she could see the excitement in Amy's eyes. "What kind of imprint?" "Think of it like an echo," Amy said, pulling up another display. "When you shout in a canyon, the sound bounces off the walls and comes back to you. Our quantum explosion created an echo in space-time itself, and that echo is now part of the quarantine barrier." Dr. Peter Grant arrived just as Amy was explaining her discovery. Peter had been analyzing the barrier's energy patterns from the space station, and his findings supported Amy's theory. "The barrier isn't just a wall," he said breathlessly. "It's a complex energy matrix that incorporates quantum signatures from multiple sources. And some of those signatures are definitely from our failed tests." The three scientists worked through the night, cross-referencing data from every disaster humanity had experienced during the assessment. The terraforming failure had created unique atmospheric particle combinations. The diplomatic incident had generated psychological stress patterns that registered on alien sensors. Even the ethical test had produced decision-making signatures that the Council's computers had recorded. We weren't just failing tests, Lisa realized. We were unconsciously gathering intelligence about their technology. Every failure taught us something about how their systems work. Dr. Joe Parker, the facility's chief mathematician, joined the team the next morning. Joe had been working on theoretical models of the barrier's structure, trying to find weaknesses that might allow human ships to escape. What he discovered changed everything. "The barrier is powered by a network of quantum processors," Joe explained, showing them a three-dimensional model of the energy field. "These processors maintain the barrier's integrity by constantly adjusting its frequency to match any object, trying to pass through it, but they're not perfect. They have computational limits." Emma Davis, the facility's top computer specialist, understood immediately. "If we could overload their processors with too many calculations, we might be able to create gaps in the barrier." "Exactly," Joe said. "But we'd need to generate quantum signatures that their computers can't predict. Random patterns that would force the processors to work harder and harder until they fail." Amy felt a chill run down her spine. "The signatures from our failed tests aren't random. They're based on human decision-making patterns, human creativity, human chaos, things that follow our logic, not theirs. Over the following weeks, the team worked in secret. They couldn't let the council know what they were discovering, so they disguised their research as routine barrier analysis. Commander Jake Sullivan provided security and resources, while Dr. Helen Wade helped them understand the quantum mechanics involved. The breakthrough came when Emma discovered something remarkable about the council's technology. Their systems are incredibly advanced, she reported, but they're also incredibly predictable. Every process follows strict logical patterns. There's no room for improvisation or creativity. Gary Lewis, a tech specialist who had joined the team, expanded on Emma's findings. Look at their ship designs, their energy patterns, even their communication protocols. Everything follows mathematical rules. They've optimized for efficiency, but they've eliminated unpredictability. Dr. Grant realized the implications first. They can't understand human decision-making because we don't follow their logical patterns. When Captain Johnson chose to save the refugees instead of the research station, he made an emotional decision that their computers couldn't predict or process. And when our quantum device exploded, Amy added, it created a resonance pattern based on human engineering approaches. Their systems recorded it, but they don't understand what it means. The team began conducting careful experiments using the quantum signatures from their failed test to probe the barrier's weaknesses. They discovered that the barrier responded differently to each signature, sometimes strengthening, sometimes showing brief fluctuations. The terraforming disaster signature causes the barrier to shift frequency, Joe reported. It's trying to compensate for atmospheric disturbances that aren't actually there. The diplomatic incident signature creates psychological interference, Emma added. The barrier's sensors think they're detecting emotional stress patterns and adjust accordingly. Lisa began to see the bigger picture. Every failure we had during the test left a unique signature in their systems. And now those signatures are part of the barrier itself. We're not trying to break through a wall built by aliens. We're trying to break through a wall that we helped build. The most important discovery came when they analyzed the strategic test failure. The simulation had recorded every human tactical decision, every unpredictable maneuver, every moment of creative chaos that had characterized their desperate defense. The Council's computers are still trying to process our battle tactics, Gary explained. They recorded everything, but they can't understand why we made the choices we did. Our human logic doesn't fit their mathematical models. Dr. Foster made the final connection. The barrier isn't just powered by their technology. It's powered by their understanding of our technology, but they don't really understand us at all. They've created a prison based on their assumptions about human behavior, and those assumptions are wrong. The team realized they had been looking at the problem backwards. They weren't trying to escape from an alien prison. They were trying to escape from a prison built using misunderstood human concepts. Every failed test had given the Council more data about humanity, but that data was filtered through their logical, predictable thought processes. We need to think like humans, Lisa said, echoing General Collins' words from the strategic test. Not like the Council thinks humans should think, but like we actually think. Emma began developing a plan. If we can generate the right combination of quantum signatures, we might be able to confuse their processors enough to create a gap in the barrier. We'd need to coordinate multiple sources, create overlapping patterns that force their computers to work beyond their limits. It's not about breaking the barrier, Amy realized. It's about making the barrier break itself trying to understand us. The plan would require precise timing and coordination across multiple locations. They would need to recreate the quantum signatures from all their failed tests simultaneously, creating a cascade effect that would overload the Council's processors. But as they prepared for their escape attempt, Lisa couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something important. The Council had been observing galactic civilizations for thousands of years. They had seen countless species rise and fall. Why had they made such fundamental errors in understanding humanity? The answer would come soon enough, but first they had to break free from their prison and show the galaxy what humans could really do. 6 months after the quarantine began, Dr. Amy Foster stood in the command center of Operation Breakthrough, watching as humanity prepared to turn their greatest failures into their ultimate victory. Around her, teams of scientists and engineers worked frantically to coordinate the most ambitious plan in human history. "Luna Station reports ready," called out Dr. Helen Wade from her rebuilt laboratory. The quantum resonance device had been reconstructed, but this time it was designed to fail in exactly the right way. Instead of trying to stabilize a star system, it would recreate the explosive quantum signature that had nearly destroyed the station 6 months earlier. "Terraforming team is in position," reported Dr. Nancy Cruz from the asteroid belt. Her atmospheric processors had been modified to generate the same toxic storms that had ruined the moon during their second test. But now those storms would serve a different purpose, creating sensor interference across the solar system. Commander Jake Sullivan coordinated the operation from Earth's surface, his communications reaching every corner of the solar system. "All ships report ready for quantum drive activation," he announced. The human fleet had been equipped with modified engines based on their explosive failure during the first test. These engines didn't provide faster-than-light travel, but they created space-time distortions that made ships invisible to Council sensors. Dr. Lisa Manning watched the countdown timer with growing excitement and fear. Operation Breakthrough would either free humanity from their prison or destroy them in the attempt. There was no middle ground, no safe option to fall back on. "Initiating first phase," Amy announced. "Luna Station, begin quantum resonance generation." The rebuilt device roared to life, immediately becoming unstable just as it had during the original test. But this time, the instability was controlled, channeled into specific frequency patterns. The explosive energy that had once been a sign of failure now served as the key to humanity's freedom. "Quantum signature confirmed," Helen reported. "The barrier is responding. Energy fluctuations detected across the entire field." Phase 2 began immediately. Nancy's atmospheric processors activated across the asteroid belt, pumping toxic gases and creating electromagnetic storms. The same environmental disaster that had failed the terraforming test now provided cover for human activities, blocking Council sensors and confusing their monitoring systems. "Sensor interference at maximum," Nancy announced. "The Council can't see what we're doing through these storms." Captain Steve Johnson led the third phase from orbit around Mars. The modified human fleet activated their quantum drives simultaneously, creating dozens of space-time distortions that registered as impossible readings on Council instruments. Ships seemed to appear and disappear randomly, following patterns that defied the logical expectations of alien computers. "Fleet deployment successful," Steve reported. "All ships are running dark. The Council thinks we're everywhere and nowhere at the same time." But the most crucial phase involved Ambassador Tony Martinez and his diplomatic team. They had made secret contact with the Kithra and Vorthak, the two species that Tony had supposedly insulted during the diplomatic test. What the Council didn't know was that Tony's emotional human approach had actually impressed both races. "The Kithra and Vorthak fleets are moving into position," Tony reported from a secure communication channel. "They're ready to provide the distraction we need." Dr. Sarah Kim, who had taken over diplomatic operations, coordinated with dozens of other species across the galaxy. Tony's supposed failure had actually opened communication channels with civilizations that were tired of the Council's rigid control. Many species had been waiting for someone brave enough to challenge the established order. 37 different species are jamming Council communications, Sarah announced. They can't coordinate their response to our breakout attempt. The masterstroke came when Dr. Foster activated the resonance cascade. Using quantum signatures from all 5 failed tests, she created a feedback loop that sent massive computational demands through the Council's network. Their processors, designed for logical and predictable operations, couldn't handle the chaotic patterns of human decision-making. "Cascade initiated," Amy reported. Council processors are overloading across 3-star systems. The barrier is destabilizing. The quarantine field began to flicker and weave as the Council's computers struggled to process contradictory information. The quantum explosion signature demanded one response while the terraforming disaster signature required another. The diplomatic incident created psychological interference that confused emotional analysis systems. The ethical test results defied logical categorization. The strategic battle data contained tactical decisions that made no mathematical sense. Barrier integrity dropping, announced Dr. Peter Grant from his monitoring station. We're seeing gaps in the energy field, small ones, but they're growing. Emma Davis tracked the Council's response from her computer center. Their ships are dead in space, she reported with amazement. The feedback pulse knocked out their main systems. They're completely helpless. Dr. Joe Parker calculated the perfect moment for breakthrough. Gap formation optimal in 30 seconds, he called out. All ships prepare for transition. The human fleet, led by Captain Johnson in the modified cruiser Earth's Pride, raced toward the weakening barrier. Behind them, the solar system buzzed with coordinated chaos as every failed test signature was amplified and broadcast simultaneously. Breakthrough successful, Johnson announced as his ship passed through the barrier. We're free. All ships are clear of the quarantine field. But humanity didn't stop with their own escape. As Council ships drifted helplessly in space, human vessels began broadcasting a message throughout the galaxy. Dr. Manning had prepared the transmission carefully, offering to share their failure-based technology with any species tired of the Council's control. People of the galaxy, the message began, Earth has learned that failure is not the end of possibility. It is the beginning of innovation. We offer our knowledge to any who wish to break free from the chains of rigid thinking. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Species from across the galaxy began transmitting requests for Earth's technology. Civilizations that had been forced to follow Council rules for thousands of years saw a chance for freedom. Within weeks, the galactic balance of power had shifted completely. The Council, faced with their first real challenge in millennia, found their authority crumbling. Their rigid testing system was abandoned as species after species demanded the right to determine their own destiny. Dr. Manning established the Human Failure Institute on a space station at the edge of Council territory. Scientists and thinkers from dozens of worlds came to study Earth's approach to productive failure. The Institute's motto, suggested by Commander Sullivan, became famous throughout the galaxy. We didn't pass their tests. We made the tests irrelevant. The final irony came when Zethkar himself requested asylum on Earth. The former Council representative had been stripped of rank for failing to contain humanity properly. He arrived at the Failure Institute as a student rather than a teacher, eager to learn how failure could become strength. Your species taught the galaxy something we had forgotten, Zethkar admitted to Dr. Manning during his first visit. That unpredictability is not a weakness to be eliminated, but a strength to be celebrated. That failure is not an ending, but a beginning. Earth's solar system became the center of a new galactic alliance based on creativity, innovation, and the freedom to fail. The prison that was meant to contain humanity had instead become the launching point for a revolution that freed everyone. And at the heart of it all was a simple truth that the Council had never understood. Sometimes the greatest success comes from learning how to fail better than anyone else.